Hello, it's Ukraine on air and Marisa Tomaszewska with a daily news. Heavy shooting continues to wreak havoc in the Ukrainian cities, including residential areas. A growing number of civilian infrastructure objects become targets for the Russian army's attacks.
A fire broke out in the residential building of the Svetoshinsky district in Kyiv as a result of the impact of shell fragments. The firefighters arrived immediately and the fire was subsequently extinguished. According to the mayor of the capital, Vitaly Klitschko, 5 people were injured. In the evening of the 20th of March, the enemy shelling caused a fire in the Podilsky district of Kyiv. Several houses and a shopping center were badly damaged. Rescuers are working at the site. There are now 8 known fatalities. The Russian military keeps hitting new civilian targets in the city of Mariupol. On March 19th, it bombed an art school, which served as a shelter for about 400 local residents, mostly women, children and elderly people. According to the city authorities, the building was destroyed and civilians were left under the rubble. The number of casualties is not yet known.
The number of the civilian victims is mounting in the town of Kreminna, Luhansk region. 56 people were killed as a result of Russian military shelling of a home for the elderly.
According to Serhiy Gaidai, the head of Luhansk Regional Military Administration, on March 11th, Russian troops fired at a nursing home in Kreminna from a tank. Acting in a cynical and deliberate manner, the invaders pulled up the tank, put it in front of the house and started firing. 56 people died on the spot. 15 people who survived were abducted and taken to the town of Svatove, which is currently occupied by the Russians. The Ukrainian side is still prevented from accessing the spot.
Warning: real danger at the sea. Russia has mined the recommended routes from the Bosphorus to Odessa, blaming it on Ukraine. This is yet another piece of dangerous misinformation from the enemy.
On March 18th, the seaport of Sochi sent a warning to ship owners and ship captains in the region about the threat of detonation of the Ukrainian Navy mines drifting in the Black Sea. The warning, signed on March 18, 2022, by Sochi seaport captain Vyacheslav Rumantsev. The warning is intended to prevent maritime traffic of commercial vessels in the Black Sea and requires immediate deployment of the NATO Permanent Mineral Trawler Group in the Black Sea. We emphasize that according to Black Sea news sources, the Russian Black Sea Fleet has been mining the recommended routes for commercial vessels from the Bosphorus in the direction of Odessa, covering it up with the lies about the Ukrainian mines destroyed by storm.
On March 21st, an ammonia leak occurred at the Sumy chemical plant located in the vicinity of Sumy, which is besieged by Russian troops. The affected area is estimated to be around 2.5 kilometers from the site.
The governor of Sumy region, Dmytro Zhivitsky, clarified that there is no threat to Sumy residents so far. However, given the prevailing wind direction, the village of Novoselitsa appears to be at risk. The State Emergency Service of Ukraine and the plant's crews are working at the site. Ammonia is a colorless gas with a pungent, suffocating smell. It is well soluble in water, explosive and toxic. The gas is lighter than air, so people within the affected area are recommended to use shelters, basements and ground floors of houses for protection.
The residents of Enerhodar apparently refused to put up with the abduction of civilians by the Russian military. On March 20, they showed their dissent by coming out to a peaceful rally.
The mayor of Enerhodar, Dmytro Orlov, urged the citizens to gather in the rally after his first deputy Ivan Samoyduk was kidnapped. This was revealed on the morning of March 20th. Hundreds of local residents supported this call and marched on the streets to withstand Russian abuses. During the action, the protesters chanted "Glory to the heroes" and "Release Samoyduk." According to the city mayor, he is holding consultations with the Ukrainian authorities on the ways of releasing the already detained compatriots. Meanwhile, in the city of Berdyansk, located in Zaporizhia region, about 10 civilian protesters against Russian troops were detained.
The UN has reported the death toll among civilians exceeded 900 people. At least 902 civilians have been killed and 1,459 injured since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights reported on March 20. According to the UN office, the actual figures may be significantly higher as information from some places where intense fighting continues can be delayed and unconfirmed. As of March 21st, according to data by the Center for International Security, 95 civilians, excluding victims in Mariupol, Volnovakha and Kyiv region, were killed. As a result of the Russian invasion, among them were 5 children and 25 civilians were injured, including 1 child. 7 civilians were taken as prisoners, and according to official information, about 20 civilians were abducted or captivated. The escalation of the Russian-Ukrainian war has forced people to flee in pursuit of peace and protection. The United Nations Refugees Chief stated that 10 million Ukrainians have left their homes because of the Russian invasion.
According to UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, about a quarter of the entire population of Ukraine was either internally displaced or left as refugees abroad prior to March 20th. Around 3.4 million Ukrainians, mostly women and children, have fled the country since February 24th. More than 1.5 million of them are children. In Grandi's assessment, this is the fastest growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Ukrainian citizens go to neighboring Western countries such as Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary and Moldova.
The Russian army turns occupied and besieged population center into concentration camps, where civilians are starving, wrote Lyudmila Denisova, the Ukrainian Parliament Commissioner for Human Rights.
As Lyudmila Denisova reports, there is a serious humanitarian disaster in a range of Ukrainian towns. The Russian army does not allow cargoes of humanitarian aid to Mangush and Melekino, where Mariupol residents have fled from bombing. Aid is also prevented from reaching Kherson region and the population centers in Kharkiv, Lugansk, Donbass and Kyiv regions. The city of Chernihiv, which has no electricity, heating and water, is suffering from a humanitarian catastrophe. The Ukrainian official said that depriving civilians of food and medicine is nothing but torture and a direct violation of the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilian persons in time of war.
Pope Francis has announced Russia's war on Ukraine as repugnant and sacrilegious inhumanity.
On Sunday, Pope Francis addressed people in St. Peter's Square with a speech in which he called Russia's war against Ukraine as cruel and sacrilegious inhumanity. He condemned Russian invasion, said that there was no justification for this and called the war a senseless massacre. Francis also called on all actors in the international community to work toward ending this war. The Pope added that above all, defenseless life should get respected and protected, not eliminated.
Ukraine has food reserves for next 2 years, Deputy Head of the Office of the President Rostislav Shurma told Ukrainian National Broadcasting.
We have food supplies now and will have them next year, because we have enough reserves of wheat, corn, sunflower oil and staple foods in warehouses and grain silos for 3 to 5 years, as we have already exported 70 to 80% of these, so we will definitely feed ourselves, said Shurma. In the same time, Russia continues blocking the seaports of Ukraine, endangering world food security. Food prices around the world are skyrocketing. Price for wheat has surged to the highest level in 14 years, and food commodities raised up to 23%, according to the IMF.
The four largest oil source company, Weatherford International, Baker Hughes, Halliburton and Schlumberger, have left the Russian market.
All four international oil service companies have announced a shutdown of their operations in Russia over its aggression against Ukraine. On March 18th, the American company Halliburton announced that it was immediately closing future businesses in Russia because it was following sanctions that prohibit transactions and work, in particular with specific consumers who are owned by Russia. Also, on the same day, the international company Schlumberger, which is responsible for maintenance of oil fields, announced the cancellation of its activities in Russia. On the next day, the American company Baker Hughes, which provides products and services for oil drilling, assessment of oil deposits, announced the cancellation of new investments in its operations in Russia. On March 20th, the Swiss company Weatherford International announced the suspension of its projects in Russia. It became the last of the big four oil service companies to announce the cancellation of investments and the introduction of technologies in Russia. The company announced this on its website.
The President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, continued to communicate with parliaments of other countries about the war. When addressing the Knesset, he compared the Russia-Ukraine war with the Second World War.
During the video address to the Israeli parliament, Knesset, President Zelensky compared full-scale Russian invasion in Ukraine with the World War II. He told that February 24th went down in history twice, and both times as a tragedy for Ukrainians, Jews, for Europe, the world. On the 24th of February 1920, the National Socialist Party of Germany was founded, a party that took millions of lives and destroyed nations. On the 24th of February 2022, a criminal order was issued to launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, he said in a statement broadcast during Ukrainian television marathon. The president also recalled the term "the final solution to Jewish question," which was used by the Nazis, and compared it with the final solution to Ukrainian question, termed used by Kremlin. Zelensky called Russia's invasion of Ukraine a large-scale and vile war aimed at destroying Ukrainian people, culture and cities.
Manolis Androulakis, Greek consul to Ukraine, managed to escape from Mariupol. The city has been besieged by Russian troops for more than 3 weeks, and it is bombed every 15 minutes by Russian aircraft from occupied Crimea.
Manolis Androulakis survived by a miracle and managed to leave Mariupol on the 15th of March. According to him, Mariupol will join the list of cities completely destroyed by war: Guernica, Coventry, Aleppo, Grozny and Leningrad. Currently, Russian troops continue to hold Mariupol in a complete blockade, maintaining constant air and artillery shelling and not allowing Ukraine or international missions to deliver humanitarian aid to Mariupol residents. The Russian Defense Ministry delivered an ultimatum to the Ukrainian authorities that Vadim Boychenko, the city's mayor, surrender the city before 5 a.m. on the 21st of March.